do this thing. Hey, if you've got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night, the 27th of February, 2020. Mike, this was going to be the week we were going to switch to Wednesdays.
Oh,
so
was
back,
it?
Remember when I was talking about that?
Yeah.
I made the decision. Well, we put out user feedback, and I made the decision. I'm like, okay, we're going to switch to Wednesdays. I contacted Kevin, and I was like, hey, can you do Wednesday instead of Thursday? Or this is when I want to start it. And he's like, sure. So we had scheduled it for Wednesday this week, and I think Tuesday night, maybe Monday night, I said, "Oh, hey, we moved it back to Thursday." I said, "Okay," and he moved it. So we're back.
So did you have a work event that got canceled or something, or did schedules just change?
Well, no. I had permanently intended to go Wednesday.
Back when you were going to permanently switch.
Yeah.
Got
so
it.
I asked Kevin if we could switch, and he said, "Yeah." And then I realized, well, I don't. Then we made the decision
to
we'll
not actually
just
switch.
change it when we need it, and Kevin was kind enough to go, yeah, I can move to Thursday. So
yeah,
that worked out pretty well. If you're joining us on Spreaker, we want to say welcome out there in Spreaker world. A couple of you are listening. I see Joe. I see Mark in the chat room. Check in the chat room if you're listening. Kevin, can you hear us now? Still not? No. You can't hear us, Kevin. Can you hear us? No, not yet.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. We're in pre-show, which means beer picks, if you're doing that. So I'm on my second Blue Moon of the night, which is just one of my favorites in a good Belgian style wheat ale tradition. It's everywhere. In fact, I think we're going to get a keg of it for my wife's, well, like a half keg for maybe like a quarter of a keg for my wife's
depends on if the kids are coming over or not, right?
That's true. Like I think a sixth keg gets you 55 glasses or something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what size kegs we get at work because I think we get quarter kegs.
Yeah,
either sixth or quarters in it, and they last a long time. So, I actually, in all that talking, Jim, I forgot to go refill my water and grab one more. So I'll be right back.
Kevin, you're looking well.
Thank you.
How are things?
They're good. They're good. It is a little, my days are kind of shifted now because working for a smaller California company, everything seems to evolve around their time zone. So I try to work accordingly.
So you would go in a little bit later and then stay a little bit later, I take it, for that.
Yeah. Well, and I work remotely, so
right.
I go out there about every 3 weeks, something on that order.
I mean, go in. I kind of just mean sign in.
Yep.
Like, that's kind of the.
So you end up looking good to everybody because I'll respond to emails at 8:00, which is 6:00 for them.
Right.
And then I'm still available for conference calls like we just got done.
You just got off of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, London was kind of extreme for me on that because I could get up and be in the office early, 7:38, and I could just get a ton of work done before the United States even woke up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they weren't even awake yet, and my day was almost done. And then I would start fielding calls or emails or whatever from the US early in kind of the late afternoon, evening, go to dinner. There'd be a bunch of things that pile up. I'd come back to the hotel room at 8:30, whatever. And I'd jam in another 2 hours of email, whatever. And I could get, and then the only thing I'd really miss is their afternoon. I'd go to bed, 10:30, 11, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would be up early to answer all their emails the next day. And man, it was super productive. Like, I thought, if I ever had to do a different time zone, I think London would be the right time zone. So it was pretty great.
Yeah, I used to, back previous job, I had to, a couple projects I did with folks in the UK, and it worked out great because we just planned the workload from, I would finish off certain things, dump it over to them to have it queued up for them to deal with. And then, it's just like good handoffs. As long as you can do those good handoffs, it works well.
Yeah.
So is that better from a lighting point of view?
Yeah, you're fine.
Your audio always sounds so good. What mic do you use again?
It is a Audio-Technica 2500, which on one hand, I think it sounds really good, but on the other hand, I don't know that it's worth more than a 2100. It is susceptible to bumps and It should be on one of those cage kind of deals that isolates it better, but
Right.
The quality's good.
Yeah, the quality's great.
So if we're doing beer comparisons,
Yeah, what do you got?
I seem to for about a year now, I've been experiencing what I refer to as IPA fatigue, and I'm back on IPA again. Very, very good local brewery, Surly.
Oh, Surly's. I love those.
Extra Citra, so it's kind of a Citra-based pale ale. It's very nice, very flavorful.
Put the can back up for me, and I'll give you the full.
There you go.
Surly.
Is that one? It's not too citrusy, is it? Because I've seen that one in our Hy-Vee, and I've actually skipped past that one because I'm like, ooh, that sounds like it would be really.
It's not. It's
powerful.
It's not too citrusy.
Okay. I'll give it a try then.
But when you mentioned the citrusy thing, through the summer here, a lot of our local microbrew shops, breweries had. I was very into sours, and we had a lot of really good sour beers and a lot of really good citrus-based sour beers. So that was kind of my summer drinking.
Okay. I like those cucumber sour beers. Those are some of my favorite. Did I talk about mine already on live, or were we?
No, you were. No.
So
bring it in.
I think I talked about these last week. The Boulevard Irish Traditional. So Boulevard being a Kansas City beer, they just came out with, I think it just came out for March time, their Irish Traditional. It's a red ale. It's just delicious. I've gone through more of these than I probably should have in the last 2 weeks since I found them. They are so good. And Hannah loves them too. It's always hard for Hannah and I to find a beer we both like love. It's easy for us to find beer that we both are okay with, but finding one that's both of us really like, it's kind of hard. So this might be a winner for the whole month of March.
Well, it's, you should just do it through March and then move on, get sick of it. And, it's St. Patrick's Day.
And Boulevard beers aren't too expensive. They're because like cross drinking it a little expensive. Our local ones here, but Boulevard's relatively inexpensive.
Oh, their unfiltered wheat is still one of my favorite beers.
Yes,
that's for years has been my summer finish mowing the lawn drinking beer.
Oh yeah.
Mike, I found the perfect cigar for you, by the way. So,
all right.
It's called a Dos Hombres, which
is
two guys. It's from Two Guys Cigar Shop out. Ed Sullivan, who's a listener here of the program. It came in their care package. So that for $30, I think it's $30, they send you 5 cigars every month, kind of what they call in the care package. And this is their first, some you can have these factories make custom cigars for you, and then they self-label and send them to the cigar shop, and then the cigar shop sells them as their brand, basically is what, and they never say who makes them. But I had it it came part of the care package. I had it the other night, Sunday night, it was really beautiful here. And it's the most mild kind of, they say it tastes like birthday cake.
And does it?
And it's kind of sweet that way and mild and mellow and not bad, actually. Yeah. No.
All right.
The thing I liked about it is it's super mild. Like it's just super mild. So for anybody who is getting into it but doesn't like dark and hearty, and it's just wanting something mild that's not going to knock you down the next day. That's the other thing I hear from a lot of guys.
That like, cotton mouthy kind of stuff.
I don't want to go to work and smell like a cigar. This one, I couldn't even smell it when I was done, and it was just a pretty good experience.
You see, temperatures are we're in the mid 60s this weekend starting. So I think some back porch
Tuesday night we might be for sure.
All right, might be getting back up there.
You could probably come by. So.
I had one quick funny story to tell in the pre-show just for 2 seconds, just because everyone will get a laugh out of this. At least the gamers will. So these are the headphones I've been wearing on stream and podcasting, and you'll notice the cord is on this side, which is actually the opposite side. Obviously, my boom arm and my mixer on the other side. Well, not even thinking about it, I'm like, well, I'll just swap it around and put that thing over my shoulder so it can be on my right side. Well, I get into games, and it took me about 15 minutes. I'm like, what is? I'm playing terrible. What is it? Well, guys, when you switch the left and the right, I thought the guys were coming from my right side. They were actually coming from my left. I didn't even think about the whole left-right thing. I'm just thinking of it as a swapping things around. And also I'm like, that makes sense. It took me playing Tarkov because Tarkov's such an audio game, and I was turning the wrong way, and then they'd be blasting me, and so had to switch it back to being the correct side. So you cannot just swap because with earbuds they only go in one way, but these headphones doesn't matter. So. Yeah. Lesson learned.
That is a good story.
It was pretty funny. I got a good laugh out of myself.
So, Jim, I will probably be using a lot of links Do you want to launch them, or would it be easier for me to share a screen? Or?
Yeah, no, easier for you to share your screen for sure. And when you do that, we'll go to the side and your screen will come up as soon as I click on it. So if you want to load that up and share it right now before we even start, I can give you a test on that. A little bit different than Hangouts were, and a lot better actually. And when it comes
a lot better. Yeah.
Alex, welcome. Alex, Brian, Joe, Mark. Good to see you guys out there. There's 11 out there in the that are watching. If you're not in the chat, check in the chat just so we know you're here. Want to recognize you if you can. We'll get started here in just a minute. We're a few minutes after. I found starting a little bit late is kind of better for everybody. Just kind of gets everybody here, gets the notifications there and such. So we'll start here in just a second. Yeah, so Mike, I'm gonna order a big bundle of the Dos Hombres from them, and those will be poker night, and for newbies.
I know I got to get back for a poker night too.
I know we don't have one planned, so I'll have to let you know because you're not monitoring the Facebook group anymore.
Yeah,
right.
Not.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex says you can swap your audio left to right. Interesting. Is that in game or in the computer?
Could you do that in your mixer? Didn't that fancy mixer do that thing?
Beyond me. I don't know.
Kevin, you want to share your screen for me, and we'll just test this really quick before we go. I would think that fancy mixer of yours would be able to swap those.
You would think. I don't know. I've never even. I don't know.
Okay.
Global settings? No, that's not.
Oh, PC based. So it's PC based. Alex says.
Oh, okay. PC based for all audio. You can swap left and right.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you, Alex. Okay. Kevin, this is what it'll look like.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay.
Inception mode.
All right. I think we're all set, guys. Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate that. Appreciate Kevin. Thank you for coming out and doing this. Good to have you back. It's always funny. I always ask you, hey, can you be on the show? And I give you 2 months probably, or a month. And you're like, I don't know if I have anything to talk about. And then I get 2 pages of notes from you every time.
That's
every time. So
that's me.
Yep. I just kind of go, yeah, no, I think you'll find. I don't even worry about it now. You and Paul and Aaron, and we just have you guys on. Dwayne. I have no problems finding things to talk about. Okay, let me see if I can do this thing here. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 434, recorded on February 27th, 2020. Here in Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Carlson, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in beautiful Mike. Like spring is on its way for sure, right?
I'm loving it. I welcome that with open arms.
Kevin, you're a little farther north. Are you guys, you still have snow on the ground?
Still have snow, but it's getting a lot nicer here.
Yeah.
Probably going to do a little ice fishing this weekend, and that'll probably be it for the winter season.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping this whole global warming thing's pretty great. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, if you lived in the Midwest, and listen, I've been through 30 Midwestern winters, and the early ones, like 30 years ago, were awful. When I first got here, I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? And so with this latest trend, whatever it is, I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with early spring. Of course, we will spring some show notes on you, and they'll be, and like for this show, I know I always say this, but Kevin actually has a lot of links tonight. So you're going to want to head out to the show notes, head out to the averageguy.tv/HGG, Home Gadget Geeks, HGG434, and you'll see all the links to everything we talk, well, most of the things that we talk about here tonight available as well. You can also join us live on our mobile app. And Kevin, you were really good when you were on the road all those years. You were really good about using this free Android, iPhone streams out to you. When we do this live, you get an automatic notification. The best way to listen to the show live, if you're out on a Thursday night and you can't get a hold of us, sometimes it's hard to get in here and make all the technology work, but that app works every single time. HomeGadgetGeeks.com is the site to go to, and you can get that downloaded. We want to thank our Patreon sponsors who sponsor us every single month. Mike, maybe the most faithful group of sponsors I've ever had, because they just keep doing it, and it helps pay for stuff. And so
they keep doing that. They keep sending notes in. They comments. We love it. All the emails, we read them all. Jim forwards me a lot of them.
Yeah.
We love you faithful followers. Even just you normal guys who don't subscribe or anything like that. You guys are just a great community. Discord has been popping off too. Been loving that.
No, that has been fun to be with Kevin. Thank you for being on Discord as well, and what you add to it. If you're on YouTube right now, you can subscribe to the live page if you want to do that. If you're on the recorded version, you can do that. Leave a comment in the comment down below, and I do moderate those. And
that goes into our chat too while we're live. The chat we're seeing is on YouTube. So if you're mobile as well, you can open up that, and that's another way you can do it mobile.
This week, by the way, we appreciate that. So this week, actually yesterday, I got a tweet that was liked, but it was a tweet about Home Server Show 116 from like April of 2010. And I was like, and it was liked by our friends at IcyDoc. And I thought, what? So apparently, I don't know if this is for sure, but I think they got a new social media person at IcyDoc. Now, IcyDoc is a company we have followed since the early days of Home Server Show. I mean, this has been, they make incredible and awesome enclosures for hard drives, all kinds of converters, SSD converters. They'll take it to 2.5. They'll take it to 3.5. They've got these fat cages that will allow you to put 3 drives in a 2-bay. You can get 5 drives in a 3-bay. Their stuff just works. Kevin, I'm sure you had a few IcyDoc components in your time.
I am beta testing something for them right now, and nice. I've used a lot of them, and I'm assuming I'm the only one who enjoys this type of thing. But another thing at IcyDoc's website is they have a proposed product area. It's products they haven't made yet, but they've kind of drawn them up. And if you like building computers and seeing what's out there from a feature set point of view, there's some really cool stuff out there, really unique kind of designs. The thing that could be a problem for IcyDoc is a lot of their designs are based on having a 5.25 inch bay open, and a lot of new computers and cases don't have that bay. But a cool thing they are prototyping is, imagine a 5.25 inch bay with 2 U.2 drives, so NVMe drives, 2.5 inch, and then twisted sideways would be 4 2.5 inch thin SSD drives. So those would be like 7mm drives. So you'd have 6 super fast drives in this little 5.25 location.
Yeah. Interesting. So I was just going to ask for you guys, for the guys who maybe haven't, my hand is raised here, haven't looked into IcyDoc a lot. Obviously, if Mac guys, you could throw us in there because we don't have a case to put them in. So it seems to me like they're almost like adapters for drive storage or drive kind of mounting in a computer case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just imagine any kind of
any sort of adapter you would want. They've probably got it.
They have external enclosures they have multi-bay external enclosures. They have, and the 3.5 inch drive has gotten a lot less needed in the years we've been doing this. In the 10 or 12 years, Kevin, we've been out here doing this, talking about this stuff. But in this community, it's not. There are certainly, as I talk to the guys who are storing stuff, they're still using spinning 3.5 inch drives. Yep. And I've got 90 terabytes of spinning 3.5 inch drives. Some I need to shuck, some I don't. To get it done, I've been thinking about kind of creating, now that I've got this, and we're still mining, we're still hard drive mining, Burst and a bunch of other ones. Eventually, I wanted to bring those kind of all into one server and kind of make a monster rig out of it. Go ahead.
And I did see from that, because you were talking about shucking real quick, there was a video out. I follow a guy on YouTube called Bite My Bits, and he actually he shucked all of his drives for his Unraid server, and he actually had one go bad. So he tested this, was like, this is my use case, guys. I shuck everything. He buys all of those, tons of those Western Digital enclosures, and he sent it back to him. What he got back, it was interesting. So he sent them, I think, just the drive. I don't think he put it back in the enclosure. I think he sent him back just the drive. I could have that wrong. What he got back was actually, so he sent in, Jim, what are the versions you get? You get the WD. They're not the passports, right? Are they?
No. They're the
Easy
Essentials
Store?
Or the
Easy Store. Is that it?
Easy Store.
Easy Store.
Yeah. So he had bought an Easy Store, sent them that in, and he got back the same size with a passport. So they sent them the whole thing though, unshucked. And that's what they sent them back to replace it. So they are honoring those warranties even for shucked drives, that was the thought, and that's what everyone, with the new, there's the right to fix it yourself, something like that.
Right to repair.
Yeah, right to repair, right to fix, with all of that. So it was an interesting test case to see that actually with shuck drives, you can still get those replaced under warranty.
Yeah, Kevin, you and I, we've talked a lot about hard drives. I mean, in the past, you've sent us over to what's the hard drive store that you like?
GoHardDrive.com was very good for white label and OEM based drives for many years. Still some good deals over there.
Yeah. Well, it was so anyways, so IC Doc sent me this tweet, or they liked one of my tweets. So I just sent a note back. Hey, would love to consider doing some work with you guys. It's 2020 now. We're still talking about these things. And so they asked some questions about, audience size and some of that stuff. Kevin, you obviously have a relationship with them, and you're testing some stuff. We talked about the M.2. They have an M.2 to 2.5 that has a dongle that goes on the back that you can plug into a port on your drive. On the back of the motherboard or inside, right? There's a new, I forget what it's called. And so they're like, hey, you want to check this out? I'm like, actually, what I'd really love is to really work on some of those fat cages, because I kind of load up, and at the same time, I'm going to need more SATA ports inside. I'm going to have to probably replace the motherboard because I need to get 12 or 13 SATA ports to make this thing work. Anyways, long story short, I want IC Doc USA to know that they've got some customers here at Home Gadget Geeks. So I'm going to ask you, I don't ask this a lot. In fact, I've never asked anything like this. But if you're listening live right now, go to Twitter, and I want you to just send a tweet to @IC Doc USA. Make sure you're getting the right one, ICYDOCK. IC Doc USA. Send them a tweet. Just say, hey, I'm a Home Gadget Geeks listener. Copy me on it. So @JCollison, so they know. And make it up whatever you want. I don't want to tell you exactly what to do because I don't want it to look like a, kind of a fake tweet. But just tell them you're a listener. If you've been an IC Doc fan in the past, tell them you heard about it on this show, on the first part of the live show here. I'd love to get some traction going with them. They've always been, I've had a soft spot in my heart for them, and I've had several enclosures. Like I said, I'm running the fat cage right now. I've been thinking of, as I've been thinking about my crypto setup here, I've been thinking about buying some of their cages because I just really like them. So love to pick them up as a sponsor in some form or fashion. Love for them to kind of spend the next 6 months or so talking about some of the stuff they do. Kevin, what you just mentioned, that's the future. You just talked about the future of storage, right? And what you're testing for them. How's that working so far? Is that and what kind of use case are you using it?
Very, very good. I'm just doing some light testing on it. It's an M.2 type of product as well that I'm looking at with them. The other one I talked about, they haven't shipped yet, but everything they have kind of works. I'm looking at this from kind of a virtualization workstation kind of point of view, home lab kind of thing, trying to get back into virtualization a bit because my skills are a little rusty there. As you were talking about that, Jim, one of the things I'll throw out about IC Doc is everything I've bought from them over the years. And Mike was just talking about warranty replacement. I've never had any of their stuff break.
Yeah.
Now, it's not most of their stuff isn't active. It's passive backplanes and slide in slots and everything else. I've never had anything fail. I've never had anything break. It's always been great product.
Yeah, it's been, in fact, I've had a drive from them that would take 2 2.5s, and you could put them in there and it would turn it into 1 3.5, right? And this goes way back to Home Server Show, and I pushed on it too hard and I broke the back plane on it. And you know what? If I had probably just sent them a note, I bet they would have sent me a new one. Like I'm sure they would have at this point, even though it was my fault. So thanks, Mike, already tweeted over there. So I appreciate that. Follow that pattern. If you're listening live, just do it now. we're not going to talk about too much stuff important. Mike's going to give an update here in a second, and we're going to and get that done. So I appreciate you doing that as well. Mike, did you have a quick update from last week on the mixer, or do you want to do that in the post show? I'd seen reactions from the community on the mic and mixer setup. Is it quick, or do you want to cover it in the post show?
Yeah, it's real quick. I mean, essentially, the end all decision for those of you playing along at home was I did end up returning the condenser. I decided that it was just a little too much work for my environment to kind of get it to sound right, to eliminate the background noise in the air conditioner. But I did have a few of you reach out. Ben in Discord actually said he liked the sound better from the condenser, but that he agreed that in my environment, it might just be more of a hassle to deal with. And I don't think this ATR 100 sounds bad in any regard. I think it sounds pretty much just as good. So I'm not losing any audio quality, but I think him and I actually might play around with the EQ on this to see if we can maybe even tweak out a little bit more audio quality. Jim and I both noticed that in the recording, it actually sounded better. That condenser sounded a little bit better than it did when we were live, which was kind of interesting. And then we already had Keith Lunsford, hit me up on Twitter and said that he's already got the Go XLR mixer. He got the mini as well. So I'm excited to see how he utilizes it. I did talk to him. I said, what are you thinking? And he goes, well, I spent the whole first night playing with just the lights, and I didn't even plug in my mic yet. And there are so many fun options. He hasn't even plugged in his mic, but I think he's already enjoying it. So yeah, quick update. And I'll let you guys know how it goes in the future. And if I decide to do any more mic upgrades, I'll let you guys know. But we're back on the ATR 2100 this week. So all you audio listeners, you'll have to keep sending those notes on Discord. Let me know what you think of this week compared to the beginning of last week.
Yeah. Well, like you said, when I was doing the editing last week, I went back and listened to some chunks of it. I was like, actually, that sounded better recorded than I remember it live.
Right.
So, Kevin, you're using a
ATR 2500, yeah.
20, and that's condenser, right,
yes.
as well?
Yep.
But you have a fairly quiet area there, I would assume.
It's fairly quiet, but if you hear some rumbling in the background, my son is practicing the tuba down the hall. So
I think when you had your door open and before we went live, we could hear the boom, boom.
What
boom,
the
boom.
hell is that?
We were trying to guess baritone or tuba. Is it so it's a tuba?
It is a tuba.
It's a tuba.
It is a tuba, yes.
Okay.
One more update from last week. I had mentioned to you guys I bought the Philips dimmer remote. Comes in has a flat case or a flat panel that you kind of tape or screw into the wall, and it's kind of hard to see. It's got some magnets there. This magnetically connects to it as well, and you have a dimmer for it. I had really hoped to use this, and I'd heard allegedly on YouTube that I could turn that into kind of a bridge. My Philips Hue version 1 bridge kind of went offline, which was kind of weird. I heard there was an exploit for those version 1s, and it would mimic it going down, and then when you went to reset it, it would exploit your network. I'm like, that's exactly what happened to me. So I don't know. Nothing's gone wrong on the network, and my Bitdefender router would probably have blocked any of that anyways. Yep. But I couldn't, as I tried to get this dimmer switch set up to the lights, it was all I could figure out is how to get all the lights to do the actions that's on the dimmer. So on, brighter, dimmer, off, right? Those are the 4 switches that are on here. Really works better with the hub, with the hub and the app and stuff. And so I gave in and ordered the V2 hub, Philips Hue hub, and that will be in tomorrow. We'll set that up. It works better with the app. I just kind of gave up. It was 35 or 30, maybe $40 reconditioned, or what else do we call that? Refurb. There we go. Thank you. So just an update. I thought I could make that work. I talked about it on the show last night. I just couldn't make it work with Habitat, and I'm sure it does. It'll work a lot more natively when I get the hub in place and go that route. So we'll update on that. Kevin is here to talk a little bit about his move to a little faster internal network. Of course, Kevin, most of what you're going to say is going to go over my head and over Mike's probably as well. But you have. Let's go back a little bit. Give us a little bit about your journey and why go to a faster internal network.
Good questions. I think it's so anybody who deals with Xfinity, like I deal with Xfinity, knows that every 2 years you have to call and threaten to leave so that you get a halfway decent price out of them, which is never really a halfway decent price. And as normal practice with folks like them, they give you more than you really need. I don't necessarily know that I need gigabit ether or internet at home, but that was the sell. We'll bump you on performance. You're still limited to I think everybody's the terabyte per month capacity limit, but and actually I saw Dave from Reset was bumping into his limit, so you get those notices. What kind of got me going on the thought process here was, so I hate renting modems, so I went out to buy a modem to save the $7 to $10 a month they want for it. And now that I had my gigabit performance, I needed a DOCSIS. Was it DOCSIS 3.1? I believe is the spec I needed to hit to.
Yeah.
And picked up a new modem for that. So it's the Xfinity or the Nighthawk CM 1150V. One of the things I noticed in looking at the documentation, I actually read the documentation before I popped into it, was reminding me that, DOCSIS 3.1 is actually good up to 10 gigabit. So there is the potential there that we could be seeing 10 gigabit speed theoretically to your home. And of course, on the back of this modem, there's 4 Ethernet ports on the back, or I'm sorry, 2 Ethernet ports on the back. Because it's gigabit, it's probably going to be more than gigabit. Actually, mine tops out at about 1.2, but that's faster than 1 gigabit port will handle. So you can team the 2 ports together. I've played with that a little bit. We'll get into that with the firewall aspect of it. But the underlying message with this is, for years, we've talked about multi-mode, multi-gig, N-base-T. There's 1 gigabit Ethernet. There's 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, there's 5 gigabit Ethernet, and there's 10. 2.5 and 5 haven't caught on very well, but now I'm starting to see things like, this as more people get gigabit internet in their homes, they're going to need something faster. So will we start to see 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports on the backs of the modems? I think so. Are we going to start to see firewalls come with the 2.5 gigabit port on the front end of it? Well, I'd like to think so there as well. What's driving some of that move to 2.5 is, so probably my least favorite of network guys is the Realtek folks. And Realtek is offering up a 2.5 gig chip now at a very affordable price. So you're starting to see a lot of folks. I ended up picking up this card. It's a dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet card for, I think it was $39, and works great. Connects to one of my switches that supports 2.5 gig. So we're starting to slowly see this adoption around 2.5 gig occur. If you look at some of the gaming motherboards, some of those are starting to come with 2.5 gig ports now. Some of the, obviously Ethernet cards here. I am starting to see as well that some of the switches too. So you can't do much of this stuff without a switch. And in the show notes, I've thrown in a review on this one, but Netgear has a MS510TX, which has 4 gigabit ports, 2 2.5 gig ports, 2 5 gig ports, and 2 10 gig ports. One of those 10 gig ports is an SFP port as well. And I think this thing sells for about $250 if I'm not mistaken. There's a real nice review of it over on Serve the Home's website. But for somebody who is looking for more performance, looking for more speed in their network, we're starting to see switches now come down into a price point that makes this affordable to jump into.
Holy moly. It gets me thinking, Kevin. I mean, as I'm in a world, and I have not internally, it's funny that you mentioned this. We've actually on the past shows have been talking about my internet connectivity problems, and usually it's rock solid. Cox has done some weird things. It's back. It's fine now. And I actually downgraded the service. I got it for cheaper, and I'm at 150 down and 10 up. And so I could go gigabit. CenturyLink is bringing fiber into the area here to kind of compete with that, and I may consider doing that. But Kevin, from an internal, when I'm thinking, and I said this kind of mistakenly early on here, but when we think about our internal network and moving, so not even leaving the house at this point, what, in your opinion, what's the advantage to going 2.5 or 10 just internally? Besides, I mean, don't you really have to have kind of a special use case of moving large video files around? I don't know too many other formats that create that much data. And maybe you could tell me different, but what's the advantage to having 2.5 or 10, or is it just because size matters?
It's in the end, it's kind of a size matters things,
Well,
the foot feet in my car goes all the way to the floor, but why the hell can't I drive that fast? Now, I do see cases if you're doing, and I always default to the one that I have a friend who does a lot of video editing, a lot of picture editing, and on his workstation, back to a NAS, we've crept up to, we just jumped all the way to 10 gigabit with him. Does he need 10 gigabit? No, but you know what? He doesn't wait for pictures to load anymore or videos to load. His projects all load just ultra fast. So it's looking for the bottlenecks, looking for, where you have issues in your network. And if you're using a NAS storage device or a home server device of some time at home, I could make the argument, if you look at the numbers of it, a regular disk drive will sustain about 150 to 200 megabytes per second transfer rates. A gigabit Ethernet connection will sustain about 125 megabyte per second. So a single hard drive or SSD in a PC could saturate a gigabit port. So moving up to 2.5, say you've got a box that does some type of RAID or some type of caching on it, you could argue that if you were streaming media, sharing media, doing different things off from a storage device, that's where I see the biggest gain, is to not have any bottleneck, any pipeline issues there.
I think I agree 100%. And especially, I think it's really important if you move up to gigabit internet and let's say user A is up in their room downloading a file. Well, it's going to max out. It's going to use as much speed as it can. So there's a gig, right? And if your switch, like especially if you have stack switches like me, right? You have your main switch and then maybe you have some offshoots. If someone has saturated that entire pipe, there's not much overhead left for the person watching Plex, the person moving a file. So even just having that little bit of overhead, 2.5 would be more than enough. I've actually been looking at getting a 10 gig card, just not a switch, but just between my main machine here and my Unraid server. But it gives you that breathing room for everyone else in the house for when someone all of a sudden maxes out that. Now, before gigabit internet, it's probably not too big of an issue in that case I just laid out, because like for me, Jim, I actually just downgraded myself on Cox this weekend down to 150/10. I'm on that same plan. So if someone maxes out a download, they're only going to take up 150 of the whole gigabit pipe. So I'm probably not running into any issues there with someone trying to watch Plex inside the house. But yeah, I agree with you, Kevin. I think having that little extra room, jumping up a little bit, I mean, why not, right? Why not do it at this point?
Absolutely.
And I think especially with a $250 price tag. Now, was that switch managed that you were looking at?
No, it's an unmanaged device.
Okay.
So
that's been my thing, is finding a good, affordable managed switch, especially because if you want to do any teaming, link aggregation, because the way I kind of do this on my Unraid box is I actually have 3 NICs with link aggregation because I run a Cisco switch. And so that Unraid box has 3 gigabit of pipe to it. Now, obviously, all my computers can only access 1 gigabit at a time, but coming from different locations, it could use up to 3 if it needed to. So if I have multiple users trying to write files to it, it's never going to have a bottleneck there.
So you're gonna make me jump ahead in my stuff here, but so
I was so excited when I saw the notes for this because I've been thinking about doing the exact same thing in my house. So I'm glad you're going to walk me through kind of your experience with it. So I can.
There's a company, MikroTik, who a lot of the networking guys know, out of Eastern Europe. I'm still amazed at this. Serve the Home did a review of it, and hopefully it's up on the screen now. It's a new switch from them that is 48 1 gigabit ports, just plain old 1 gigabit ports. It is 4 10 gig ports with SFP connections. And then it is 2 40 gig ports. And for those who understand 40 gig uses what's called a quad SFP. So you can run it from a 40 gig NIC, or you could break that out into four 10 gigs. So it gives you some flexibility there. And amazingly enough, apparently this switch is going to sell for $500.
Wow.
Now, does anybody need 40 gig at home? No, probably not. But talk about.
But I want it.
Yeah. But I want this.
Now that I know it's there. Oh, geez. Now I was going to do 10 gig. Now that's just
this is just
small stuff compared to 40. Wow.
Well, and if I move over to, once again, later in this, I was going to talk a little bit about how cheaply you can move to 40 to 10. I've been a fan of Aruba, a wireless vendor owned by HP now. They have they obviously sell switches to coordinate all of their wireless access points out there, and they're moving towards multi-gig as well. But it's becoming very popular in the networking community to buy their older switches, lifetime warranty, lifetime support for free. So this is a 24 port PoE switch. So 1 gig ports at 24 or 24 1 gig ports with PoE, 4 10 gig ports off in a little card off to the side here. This one happened to come with dual power supplies, and this was a whopping $75.
Oh, I'm spending $75 right now.
So if you, this is the lowest I've ever seen these, and there's great over at, I'll probably reference Serve the Home. Those guys, they've got a couple of guys who've done, you kind of need to jump into this switch and tell those 10 gig ports, hey, you're not uplink ports anymore, you're regular Ethernet ports. So there's a little bit of config to do with it, but it's not that difficult.
But it is managed.
That is a fully managed switch. Yep.
I'm about to spend $75.
So look at that one.
That's the best deal I've ever seen.
Hey, IC Doc, see how easy people spend money?
Yeah.
Just
especially the co-host of the show.
Yeah, well, you're the worst for sure.
I know.
Sometimes.
So Jim, another thing popped into my head when you were talking about
Kevin. Hold on, before you do that, hold that thought for just 1 second. Let me bring this up. So the 24 port switch that I bought 2 years ago and I think it was a screaming deal at $90 then. It's $70 now. This is your standard 24 port gigabit Ethernet, which up until tonight was just perfectly fine for Uyghur. And now it's not. But it's interesting, $75 for that in a low configuration. That's more of a hardcore tech guy. But, wow. All of a sudden, you kind of go, man, the gigabit days are, I guess internally, the gigabit days are over.
Yep. Now, one thing to keep in mind with a switch like that is the 10 gig ports are SFP. So you'll have the added cost of buying transceivers, and transceivers aren't always compatible. So it is a big thing to go and check so the transceiver I'm buying for this Aruba switch, is it compatible? Is the transceiver I'm buying for the network card? So on the other end, I really like Mellanox is a very good 10 gig Ethernet card in the enterprise, and you can get Mellanox Connect 3 cards for about $35. So buying transceivers from either end can run into a little bit of money, but there's also direct attach cables, which is if you don't have to go a very long distance, you can forget about fiber and use these direct attach cables that have transceivers already soldered on the ends. So that tends to be a route to go. So the switch is cheap. The other stuff will probably set you back something. Although I've noticed lately that, and you can buy transceivers that convert to an RJ45. So if you do have a 10 gigabit card that uses traditional Cat6A wiring and supports RJ45s, you can go that route as well. And what actually Serve the Home has been doing a series of reviews on those as well. Just a thought, Jim, on what you were saying too about your home network is, and I'll get to this in a little bit on wireless, is, and what Mike was saying about different users streaming and downloading things. If you only have like one access point in your house, or in a few minutes I'll beat up on mesh networking because I'm not a fan, is if a lot of your users are tied into one of the mesh devices, you're going to soak that guy dry. You're just going to suck that guy dry. So with wireless access points, it gives you the ability to have a gigabit port to each of the access points, have those scattered through your house so that you can kind of break them up by rooms and usage areas where people use, and you can balance out your network much better from that point of view as well. So,
but not as convenient, right? I mean, then are you moving in between SSIDs when you're doing that, or
nope, flat SSID through the whole house,
and that transfers okay? I mean, this is okay, because that's what in the early days of this was the problem, right? The handoffs never worked very well.
The handoffs and roaming were awful. And what's come together now is all these guys kind of figured out that unless you're in the enterprise and deep in the enterprise, nobody's going to pay money for a wireless access point controller anymore. It's all done through software, or it's cloud-based, and you got to give it away to get it out the door. So now everybody is doing, unless you're Cisco or Aruba or some of the high-end guys, you're not going to get anybody who's going to pay for an access point. So
Joe makes a good comment. He says the old saying, nobody ever gets fired for buying Cisco, unless, of course, it's for home and the significant other finds out what you spent for it.
Well, I actually run my Cisco switch. I got it on eBay for $30. It's a 48 port PoE managed Cisco switch for $35 because it doesn't have a faceplate and has a big dent in the top. But hey, it still works. Like
Gigabit?
You plug it in. Oh yeah, gigabit. And I think there are 4 fiber port SFP ports. I've actually never checked if those are 10 or 1. My biggest problem is the command line on Cisco is, for a guy who doesn't do it in his day job, is not fun to work with. Yeah. And there's no support now, right? Like, 'cause I don't have a contract with them, so upgrades, things like that don't happen.
No, it's a bit tough. So switching back for a minute, that whole 2.5 gig Ethernet connection stumbled onto, and the storage guys are coming along slowly. Asus has a storage division that builds NAS products, actually quite nice NAS products. Their higher end units are all starting to come with 2.5 gigabit ports, which you could link aggregate to 5 if you wanted to. QLogic is offering up 10 gig ports on some of their stuff, so that's a nice jump as well. For the storage guys who like to play with stuff, this is a little company who does like open source ARM based products. They partner with a couple of Linux vendors. They partner with Open Media Vault, and they have a little ARM board here with 2.5 gig Ethernet on it. And they're doing a first production run on this product. It's a tiny little box, basically holds 5 hard drives. I think the whole works is under $400 for the whole thing. You can either buy the board and do projects with it. What caught my interest in this board is it is a nano ITX form factor with 5 SATA ports on it. And surprisingly, it will actually fit in. Jim, you remember the old HP media servers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This board will physically fit in there. I'm still trying to figure out how to do the cabling, but we might have a rebirth of the old media servers.
Oh my gosh, board and drive cage, or just the board?
I would just do the board, do the board and try to cable into the existing drives there.
Okay.
So back to my internet stuff. My next big thing was obviously I'm on gigabit internet now, and
what's that costing you, Kevin?
It's a big bundle. I want to say it was the whole thing with cable and everything else. I want to say the internet come out to be like 70 a month or 60 a month or something like that.
That's not too bad.
But it's buried.
And is that gigabit up and down or just down?
Just down. It's about 30 up.
Yeah, that's what Cox is here too.
That drives me nuts. That just drives me nuts. Why does it have to be that way? Like, I need up. I don't care about down. I mean, I do. You don't.
So you should, when you mentioned earlier about Charter offering fiber, a lot of the fibers are full.
They are.
What you get down is what you get up. And it's just in how they kind of lay out their circuitry.
I think I need to wait for CenturyLink to run their fiber. And I think they're running it right now. There's a big project going on Harvell Road, which is what comes into Bellevue, And I think I see them running blue and orange conduit. They go in there and they run it down through. And I think that's the fiber coming in. So I have to keep tabs on them, but it's just frustrating to get 10. And I can't buy more. I have to get on a crazy commercial plan to get any more, and you're like, 100 would be great. I don't even need a full gigabit. 100 would be awesome. So,
and I'm here in the Twin Cities. I'm right between, I'm in Cottage Grove, which is just south of Woodbury. Woodbury is one of the largest, fastest growing suburbs in the metro area. And I have one choice, and that's Xfinity. That's my only choice here. Now, luckily, I have a choice to get really fast, but for it being 2020, we still don't have that great of offerings across major metro areas. So,
yeah, this is when we talk about the digital divide. And now these are total first world problems. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So let me just say, for me to gripe about not being able to get gigabit when there's places in the country that can barely get 10 down, right?
Yep.
A lot of rural areas and stuff like that. So I kind of feel bad, but darn it, I want it.
Let's talk about me.
It's all about me at this point. But anyways, all right, Kevin, keep going.
So obviously the next thing from an upgrade path here is you mentioned Cisco. I was running a Cisco small business firewall just because I was stalling to move to something else. I'd used an old Zyxel USG20 for many years, had good luck with that.
Yep.
And so I went back to our good friends at Untitled. And, Mike has mentioned it many times. I used it years ago. Was blown away at how clean and easy the install was. I will give a little, I've got it running on an older HP Pro 3000 PC, which is, it's like a Pentium Q9500. So it's a quad core Pentium. And obviously it doesn't hardly tap the CPU at all. I've got 8 gig of memory in there. It's using about 30% of that. I've got everything turned on right now. I honestly wasted more time farting around getting that old PC tweaked and tuned and running, kind of the diminishing returns deal. I had a nice quad port HP Ethernet card in it until I realized the PC wouldn't boot because it didn't have enough space to load the ROM for that card. So I pulled that out and put a dual port in it, and we've got it running. It's very stable. But the new guide for installing and setting up Untangle is so easy. And Mike, I don't know if you did, I just basically turned everything on and hooked it up, and it's cooking away.
It does. And I, more and more, the more I use it, the report function on there is actually, it seems a little daunting at first, but it's super easy. I needed to know yesterday for some reason, looked at my Cox, because I've been trying to see if I can get rid of my unlimited data addition to my internet, which is $50 a month. So yesterday I had a lot more data than I thought. You just go in there, do a report on bandwidth control. It can tell you by host name, right? Which was great. So then I said, oh, wow. Well, this computer used a ton. Then I switched it over to by application, and it said, well, here's the port. And it was actually, OpenVPN, whatever it was. I'm like, well, something's using the VPN. Maybe it shouldn't be. And, I was able to, you can just search through all that data, and it keeps it for so long that even if you realize, oh, last week I had a problem, looking back through all that data, and you're right, the usability of it, being able to run a VPN server on there, which I use to connect back to my home, but also a VPN out. So you could either run your whole network through a VPN, or it's got super smart rules for, hey, when this host is online, send him through the VPN, please. So if you have that one friend who always comes over and is doing shady stuff on your network, you could just tell it, hey, every time he comes over, send him through the VPN, right? Just extremely cool functionality. And I don't know if you're like me, I find something new in there every once in a while. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I had no idea that even existed.
I just to try it out, I tried to go to a few of those off-color websites, and it blocked them in a very polite fashion.
I think you can change that screen too to say some different stuff. It'd be pretty funny. I've thought about freaking out some people.
When you mentioned when I saw the VPN and how easy it is to set up a site-to-site VPN between two of them, kind of back to that storage thing again, is putting a storage box at your location and somebody else's location. All of a sudden, back to the 30 up and the 100 down,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes more reasonable of an idea to mirror storage between locations.
Yeah.
You know, set up the first mirror locally before you pop things over. But you know, and another thing with going with the Untangle here is now I've got plenty of ports, so I'm on a gigabit port right now, and I can saturate that. I'm still playing around a little bit with the configuration to do 2 of the gigabit ports through the teaming to make sure I get the utmost out of this box. But it does. Over the years, if you haven't caught on to it, have been for years the 3 networking kind of guy: firewall separate, switch separate, and wireless access point separate. I know it's probably more expense, but we'll get into that in a minute, where maybe it's not. And you know, it just works better for me. I like to block things up that way. A good router, there's nothing wrong with a good router, but I still like the idea of having all these things separate, so you can tweak and tune them and have them be just as you like them to be. In that vein, one of the concerns I've had is, you know, you almost run into this thing these days where it's difficult to find reasonably priced standalone firewall router type products. So Untangle selling their appliance, or you putting it on a PC yourself, is a nice way to go. I almost went for this, but I didn't want to wait for it. For the guys out there, there's a company called Firewalla. It's a bunch of ex Cisco guys. Their initial products were these little inline cubes that you could put inline in bridge mode between your modem and your router, or on the other side if you preferred. And it just gave you some extra security reporting and functionality. They have an Indigo GoGo page right now for a real firewall product. So it will do routing and everything, 4 Ethernet ports and a console. And I think they're doing them for $375. These guys are promising, at least for, I want to say 1 year or 2 years, of free updates for them. So keeping, you know, always looking for that. Hey, I just want a good, reasonably priced firewall that supports the features and functions that are more family home related than, say, small to medium business related. It was pleasant to see somebody else jump on the scene with the Firewalla guys.
So with your rig that you're running, how much power do you know you're drawing?
I do not. That's a good question.
Because I thought mine was a lot more than it was. I was running an i3 Dell Optiplex. I was like, geez, that thing's got to be pulling a lot. I put the meter on it, 20.
Yep.
20 watts. And I mean, that's not terrible. It's not good by any means, right? But it's
just 2 light bulbs.
Yeah.
2 incandescent light bulbs.
That's what I figure. And so I had actually been playing around with virtualizing that in Unraid. I'm like, you know what, with all the hassle virtualization causes when you take down Unraid, then the whole internet goes out. I'm like, 20 watts isn't really that bad.
Right.
I mean, I think it's less than, you know, in Omaha, at least where we're at, the prices for energy are pretty cheap. It's like $1 a month, I think, to run that thing. Not terrible.
Yeah, it's not like an old Core i7, or I had an old Xeon, Kevin. You sent me some memory for that back in the day. And I think it was a dual Xeon. And man, that thing was like 470 watts.
Oh yeah, to be a cool cat in those days, we were all running Dell and HP workstations, and those things were tanks.
Yeah,
huge Xeon monsters with lots of very hot memory in them.
I talked about that on the show here, and Kevin, I got a note from Kevin the next day. He's like, "Hey, I got some memory for you. Don't do anything. I will send it to you." And I think you sent me 64 gig in there, and we fired that thing up, and I could really only, my tree hugging self could really only run that server for about a couple weeks. And I felt so guilty. I'm like, this doesn't work. Now, later would I, start running a mining operation in the house of GPUs, but one server at 470, I think it was 470, something like that, 460, 470 watts.
Kevin sent me 2 hard drives that I'm still using in my Unraid box, like 5 years ago. I think they were enterprise drives.
Thanks,
yeah,
Santa.
I know. It was something. I think I mentioned it, and you're like, I have some extra drives, and those are still running strong. One's my parity disk, and one's still running.
I always, when I have those, I tend to be a little. That was when I had a friend working at WD, and he would always hand pick the best engineering samples he got back that he felt comfortable giving away, because some engineering samples get abused pretty nasty. So those were always good hand picked kind of ones.
Yeah, they run great. They've been running for 5 years strong.
Kevin, I've always just appreciated your generosity to the community. We've been doing this now. I think I mentioned at the top of the show, we've been doing this together for 10, 11 years now, and I've just always appreciated your generosity. So thanks for that. And really, that mirrors the community here. Like I just I've never been in a community that's just so giving and so willing to share. And when people need things, it's just like, can I just ship it to you? Kind of basically, or $20, type deal. So I always appreciate that.
So here's a Mike Rieger's trivia question for the evening.
Uh-oh.
My first appearance on Home Gadget Geeks, what was the product that I was there to talk about? And Jim barely knew me and allowed me to come on and talk about the wonders of this new product.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's not the typewriter, right? It's how
close.
long has Jim's been podcasting?
It's close.
Jim's a seasoned podcaster. No, I don't know if I even have any guesses.
This was the launch of why I preferred Windows Phone for work and how well it integrated with our Exchange server at work. And I could have 3 or 4 calendars all together, which is easy to do now. But at the time, this was revolutionary stuff, this Windows Phone thing.
What year was that?
Oh boy, I'd have to go back and look. It's a long.
No, I'm trying to find I'm even trying to find the show.
It's got to be probably 2012.
Might even be before
that.
Yeah. Oh, it was probably 2007, 2008.
Well, that'd be on Home Server Show then, because we didn't start here till 2010.
Well, then it would have been
right around there, maybe.
Kind of time frame.
That could have been a Surface Geeks thing too. Anyways,
this
was here on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, you keep talking. I'm going to find this show.
So, just a quick thing about Untangle, and Mike, you talking about trying to save power. I don't know if I can get this on the picture well, but I'm a big fan of these little small form factor. HP and Dell makes a nice little one. This is HP's ultra, what do they call it? Ultra small desktop enclosure. And I thought, God, it would just be great if I could get 2 more Ethernet ports in that sucker. And I finally stumbled onto something that may come to fruition someday. I'm still working it out here, but there is a company, Seba is one of them, that makes a dual port NIC. I can get the right side of it here, that fits in a mini PCI connection. So all these little guys have a slot for a wireless card, and this fits in that slot. The problem I've run into, and then you have a couple little cables here that go off to another little board that is your back port out of the system. So you get this little guy hangs out the back of the system.
Jim, can you show his screen?
I showed his screen. Sorry, there we go. Sorry. I was looking for the show. Sorry.
No problem.
So you get this little dual port deal that goes out the back of the box. You'd want to take it off this, and you'd probably have to modify it for one of these low profile chassis.
Gotcha. So it's not sitting in a slot. You would take off that bracket, and it's usually hanging external to the machine.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then this is the little board that goes in the mini PCIe slot. The problem I've run into is like on the HPs, this thing is packed so deep under other stuff. There's no room to get the cables out. And the closest I've found is I've got a Dell 790 here that is appears to have room. I might have to modify the motherboard a little bit to get enough space in the front there. But I threw a link in the show notes for it. It's $25. So, if Lenovo, I haven't tried every combination, obviously, but if you find some of these small boxes like this that have that slot for Wi-Fi, which goes right down on the board, and there's some opening around it, I think this is kind of a neat way to add 2 more ports to one of these little chassis, and it'd make a great firewall. Low power, small size, easy to work with.
Definitely.
Okay, I have it. I think it was. Oh, those are the show notes. Hold on. Let's go. Okay, I think this is it. HomeNet. So this is funny. This is March 2nd, 2013. And what are we talking about? Home
networking.
Like some of the same words you've been using 7 years later, Kevin. So this was you, Greg Welsh, Bill Pullman, Rennie Phipps came on. We were doing roundtable discussions in those days, and we'd done a 4-part series just on home networking, and everybody was bringing their home networking diagram. And Kevin, there is yours right there. Which is just like, this is awesome that that we've collected this information over this length of time, right? This is 7 years ago, and almost to the day in some regards. I mean, it's February 27th. This was this was March 3rd. It was probably March 1st by the time I got it posted. But so we're pretty close to it being exactly 7 years ago. And here we are talking about networking, right? I mean, how cool is that? So, Kevin, you had your diagram. By the way, I think you can get to this, theaverageguy.tv/HT, because we called it home tech in those days.
That's right.
HT107 is, I think, what will get you there. But we had, Kevin, you had your network. Bill listed out his network, which was cool. Rennie put together his network, and Greg diagrammed his network. So how cool is that? That's still out there.
Was draw.io a thing? I think Greg and the guy right above Greg used draw.io, because that one right there, I think that's a standard template, because that's how mine's diagram. That's like the exact 3-column format that I have mine in. If draw.io was a thing back then.
Kevin, I looked for the Windows Phone reference, and it must have been something we talked about post-show or at the end of the show or something like that. But man, some really good show notes for this.
Oh yeah,
this 107. I think this may have been in the days when Andrew put these together for me. Andrew Morris came on here for a lot of years and was doing that as well. So
my drawing is definitely a Visio drawing. I was able to find most of my logos and images and everything.
Yeah. How many of these things? Let's see. I wonder if I can
make it bigger.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see if I can blow this thing up here. The thing goes away to, can you? No, I'm not going to mess with it. No. Kevin, as you look at this thing, is any of this still in place?
2 of the printers are.
Okay. I see 2 HP microservers there.
They'd be different microservers today. Actually, I think I've got an IO safe in there, and that is still running.
Okay. I see an N40L and a 36L.
Yeah, those are sitting on the bench. Still have them. Don't use them.
I finally took mine to recycle. My N40L went to recycle. So, good blast from the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A good blast from the past. Okay, back to you. What else? What's next?
So I enjoy participating on forums, helping people out. Sonos, the speaker forum, is one I spend a lot of time on, and the majority of the problems people have with Sonos is their network, not anything to do with Sonos. It's more about networking. And I stumbled across, we've had a few of them over the years, but this is a package for testing Wi-Fi, and it is very robust, gives you good ideas of signal strength. You can put it on a laptop and walk around the house with it. It's good to have maybe an external USB Wi-Fi connection, so you get like the latest greatest performance, because you want it to match what you're broadcasting from your wireless access points. But this is one I recommend to folks who have networking issues and are trying to resolve. Are they having channel conflicts with the neighbors? Are they running into interference? And, and the thing I commonly find is everybody believes just because they can connect to their wireless, that their wireless is really good, and it's not necessarily really good. Which brings me to, and I don't want to beat up on mesh too much. I think I've played it with some mesh systems. I haven't used them in full production here at home, but I continually run into more and more issue. I'll pick on Orbi and Eero, and those products are great for coverage. If you have trouble getting Wi-Fi signal all over your house, those guys are great for getting Wi-Fi signal all over your house. But they have problems with throughput. They have problems with latency. And frankly, the router functions in them tend to not impress me too much. And especially with like Eero, I've occasionally run into things where home automation hubs, like the Philips hub, or Jim, what's the cameras you were using that had their own hub with it?
Well, I have the Ring. I've got the in the back. They are Zmoto.
Yes. So their hub would do this weird thing where it would try to connect to every one of your Eros because it thought it was a router by itself, because they kind of distribute the router function. So I just have run into, with mesh, you can get great coverage, you can get Wi-Fi all over your house, but in the end, you tend to, do you get the bandwidth you expect out of it? Do you get the performance? The devices all talk to each other. So commonly the end result is, hey, to get best performance out of your mesh network, you should really hardwire each of the units. Well, if I'm going to hardwire each of the units, why don't I just go with regular wireless access points?
Right.
Because if cabling, and I know cabling can be an issue, cabling can be a problem. And of course, wireless access points, have come way down in price. It used to be good wireless access points for a couple $100. Then they dipped down into the 150. They hovered about 125 for a long time. I bought into D-Link a few years ago out of seeing their AC 1200s were, this is quite a few years ago now. They got down to like $89. So I bought 3 of them. And the other thing that pushed me over, Jim, to your comments earlier about handoffs and that, they, like other people, had offered up their central Wi-Fi function for free. So you could use their application product for free and have it all running. So I went that route. What I threw in the notes here too is if I was jumping off, so been happy with D-Link, although I just went to add a couple of wireless access points and I realized that it's a learning curve. You got to kind of jump back into their controller and kind of, if you're not doing it every day, it's kind of a little difficult to work with. But if I were looking at jumping into wireless access points today, Ubiquiti is a safe choice, real easy, safe choice. A lot of people use it, easy to work with. But if I was testing today, I think I'd give the TP-Link guys a shot. I've heard a lot of good stuff about their wireless access points. AC 1350, their EAP 225 sells for $59 a piece. And they offer on the Discord site, we talked a little bit about extending Wi-Fi outside. Let me see if I can find it here. There it is. For $69, they offer a outdoor version that is all sealed and is weather resistant, weatherproof, durable. So if you can run the network cables, and if you have the placing for it, and it's not too hard to place this stuff out, and you can kind of get creative with running through walls and through attics and such. I'm a big fan of wireless access points. And I just wanted to point this one out because it was very tempting recently. I was thinking maybe it was time to move off the D-Link and onto something else, but it's been so stable and so good. And frankly, I just picked up a couple of used models of the exact same access point for $25 a piece. So, I can have a little buffer inventory there. And like the rest of these guys, the software package for it, their EAP controller, is a free centralized controller. So throw it on a PC or put it in a virtual machine and you can be up and running, and that manages all your handoffs and such. For folks who maybe, go ahead.
No, well, so here was my question. Mainly because I just saw it there. There's been some rumblings through like the network community that, the MU-MIMO, so multi-user MIMO, is more of kind of a marketing ploy now because multi-user MIMO actually doesn't work very well compared to regular MIMO. Have you seen that that's true while you've been doing your research here? Like, are companies charging more for MU-MIMO devices than just standard MIMO?
I at one point they were. It was like, so all this kind of gets back to whose chipset you're using. So
okay.
Almost all of these inexpensive products are Qualcomm chipsets. And if you look at what TP-Link sells, it's likely kind of the standard Qualcomm design. So initially there were two different chipsets, and to get the upper end of the features, it was more money. Now I think it's just kind of rolled down into being their standard from a price point of view.
So you're not overpaying for a feature that's not the best anyway.
Yeah, I don't think so anymore. But yeah, it is a valid point, because initially people really, the interest around, or the features of that, were kind of blown out of proportion. Maybe it was very alluring to have this, but then you had to sit back and go, well, wait a minute, my device that's connecting to it has to support the same thing for it to be able to take advantage of it. And does my new laptop have that? Will my new laptop have it? So I think that just kind of turned into a bit of uncertainty around the technology there.
Interesting.
Kevin, can I go back to this device that you threw up here?
Yes.
Can I just, so it says download here.
Yep.
This is this is just the software, right? This is the Wi-Fi analyzer.
Yep.
So available for Windows 10. Can I just put this like on my Surface Pro and use it? Because it's a Wi-Fi device. I'm assuming it needs to be on Wi-Fi, and then you're going around and it's measuring things, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Free software, free download.
Free software, free download.
Why wouldn't I have this piece of software on my Surface Pro to...
I can't think of any reason not.
We kind of breezed through it, and I was like, "Hey, whoa, wait a minute!" I was just helping somebody in the StreamYard Facebook group. Their video was stuttering, and I was a little sensitive to that after a couple of weeks ago when my video was stuttering. And so I said, okay, have you checked like what's your up and down? And they dropped a speed test in there, and they were getting plenty. And I said, okay, let's just check your CPU utilization, right? And now they were on a Mac, they were fine. And I didn't want to say like, because I knew they were Wi-Fi, and I wasn't going to be that guy that's like, yeah, you can't do this over Wi-Fi. But I needed to be that guy. So good timing on this. This wouldn't have helped them, but hey, go put the software on a piece of equipment and then run it. But this could be a cool little tool. This is the first time I've seen this, of kind of seeing, especially if you're in a big house. And on Reset, McCabe talks about this all the time, right? He's got dead zones. He's got walls to get through. He's got concrete foundations. He's always constantly kind of thinking about, how do I get the right access points where I need to get them? You could walk around with this, right? And it would tell you what the signal strength is. And it looks pretty simple.
It's very simple. It'll tell you signal strength. There's lots of graphs and things down on the bottom. And frankly, this is one where I have had cases where, like I say, people complain about how something works, and they know they got great Wi-Fi everywhere. And you get them to try this and walk around the house with it, and they go, oh, wait, my Wi-Fi is not so great. The other thing you will find with this that a lot of people don't realize is one of the biggest walls or deterrents to Wi-Fi is the human body. So if you're standing between your access point and your laptop, it will block quite a bit of signal. And you quickly find people say, well, as I was walking around the house, it kept changing. Well, where's your access point? Where's your router? Where are you? Where's your laptop?
So you might want to make sure you have a direct line that you're not in the direct line, right? So
think about where you are and where that's
I'm gonna this weekend. I love to install these kinds of things. I have one, I have a Bitdefender router, and it's the Wi-Fi for the house. And to be honest, we don't have a ton of stuff that's Wi-Fi that's mission critical. It's our phones. It's the Amazon devices. It's the couple of the Google devices that we have. I'm trying to think. We probably have more than that, but nothing where it matters. Although when the Wi-Fi went down the other day, it got really cold, and then our up speed went to crap. Alexa, the Amazon device. Sorry, go back to sleep.
I know about a number of Amazon products, including the Echo Frames, the Echo Loop, and the Nebula Soundbar.
Just wait. My Echo Auto in my car goes off whenever anyone on my podcast now. It didn't used to affect me in a car, but now it does with Echo Auto.
Amazon. Okay. But Sarah was trying to turn some of the lights on and off, and this goes back to the Habitat conversation that we had, or stop some music. And man, Alexa was the Amazon device was just not responding very well. And I never put two and two together that it was because we had terrible upload speed. And so I was having to go out, and of course that was being restricted, right? So she was telling me, like, gosh, had to yell at it. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Well, now we know.
And the other cool thing about Ubiquiti that they have built into their controller, something that I run, so I use the Ubiquiti controller to control my home and two other people who I have set up in their homes. And they actually have Wi-Fi AI, which is kind of it's in beta, but what it does is at a certain time, and you can do it daily, weekly, monthly, it will do kind of it'll analyze the area, right? See what other access points, what other Wi-Fi networks are open and using what channels, and it will actually adjust your channels to be the best for that. You can run it daily. So I run mine daily at 3 a.m. Hey, check it, because around here, I think all of my neighbors must have theirs set to auto, because everyone's channels are changing all the time. So I have mine just set 3 a.m. Hey, do your scan, try and figure it out, do the best. And you can actually give you a log of, hey, this day I changed it to this channel. This day I changed it to this channel. And it's kind of nice to see. So most days I'm at 100%. Sometimes it's only changing the 5 gigahertz, which actually surprises me. I don't know why it needs to change 5 gigahertz. I would think that there's so many channels there that I wouldn't have any problems. But it does a pretty good job, and you can have it only use 1, 6, and 11 like you should for 2.4 if you're only use 1, 6, and 11 if no one's told you that yet when you're out there changing your Wi-Fi. But it's great, especially for me, for the people's houses who I'm not in every day. I don't know. So those little tools do help you monitor it in the slightest. So I agree. Ubiquiti is a fantastic choice. I use them for almost everything. You guys do know I switch back to Untangle for the routing features because it's better than their USG. But for access points, I have 2 of the AC Pros in my home, and my house is pretty small, but I did it just because I can, and I needed one in our bedroom. Actually, it's in our bathroom because I was getting really bad Wi-Fi in the bathroom, and you can't have bad Wi-Fi in the bathroom. That just doesn't work.
No.
So I installed there's an access point in the bathroom because we needed one. So there wasn't any coverage on that side of the house. But yeah, those little tools in there. I know who said Wi-Fi Man too. That's a great little app for Android. Yeah. That Ubiquiti puts out.
Yeah, no, there's some, and Jim
Tajowski said it.
I like that app because it's a Windows 10 app, so you can throw it on a laptop and that. But yeah, there are some really good Android-based apps.
You will not find one for iOS because they do not give you the data you need from the Wi-Fi network card.
Well, I have that Surface Pro 3 sitting around. That would be perfect for that.
It'd be perfect for that. Yeah. That kind of troubleshooting would be great.
One more, just a Ubiquiti product that doesn't get used a lot, and I like them for a specific reason. These Air Cubes they're a different product line within Ubiquiti, so they're not part of the Unify family. So they actually use their UNMS software management control function. These are AC devices. They support PoE, so they look a lot like something you could put on a table or a shelf, but they have to be hardwired. But you're going to have to run power to a mesh device anyway. And I just like the idea of these being able to, you could move them around the house and they don't look awful. You don't have to mount them to a wall or a ceiling like a traditional wireless access point. They have a couple of Ethernet ports out the back, and one of those offers PoE pass-through. So if you had a camera nearby that you wanted to run off from that as well. And these guys, the AC version sells for like $79. But oddly enough, Woot seems to end up with them for $39 a piece on probably a quarterly basis for whatever reason. So just kind of another twist out there. Different form factor, slightly different function, a little bit of a different twist on the controller aspect of it. I think I threw in the notes as well. In the notes I threw a link for comparing Unify and AirCube just from a management and a functionality point of view.
Kevin, if we were on our Discord, we have an online deals section in our Discord. I know a lot of these end up over at the Home Server Show forums, reset forums now. Would that show up? Would a Woot deal like this show up from you? Because I know you're the master at this. Do you post them there when they show up?
Yeah, actually, the last time this was up on Woot, I did pop it up on the Discord site. So,
Okay,
yep,
good.
Try
You also got me my 4-port gigabit network card. You posted that one. That was a great snag for $25.
Those are I keep too much crap around here, but I always seem to go through things like that when I'm playing with stuff or working with things, and it's just handy. And especially a good I think that was an Intel, if I'm not mistaken, for $25 is pretty hard to beat.
I even got some old school. I think this was you that posted it, but I got some old school Craftsman screwdrivers for $20.
Yes,
that was you, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and actually, I got them for a buddy of mine. He was getting married, and he has no tools, like none. And he was trying to put together this arch thing for his own wedding, and he was just having a hell of a time. And I was like, dude, well, don't you have any tools? Like, no, I don't have any tools. Like, millennials don't own tools. They don't own any tools.
We post them on our podcast over here.
I mean, except Uyghur.
Yeah.
But so I bought them. That was $20, and so I picked those up as an early wedding gift for him. So Kevin, thanks for posting. Speaking of deals, if I was going to do 10 gig on the cheap, are there some things I could do? I mean, how do I do today 10 gig on the cheap?
So kind of depends on finding the points. So Mellanox 10 gig Ethernet cards that are the SFP. So you'd need the transceivers for them. Those go for $30-$35 on eBay, kind of all day long. Okay. They're usually branded Dell or HP, but there's plenty of you can go right to Mellanox and get the latest firmware to turn them back into a Mellanox card.
Okay, so those, and then the device that Uyghur's already bought, right? The for $75.
Yeah,
I need one of those.
If you're into, so that'd be the switch on the other end, and you'd want to switch with some 10 gig ports, depending on what you needed. So the Aruba that I threw up there, obviously one of the drawbacks is that's an enterprise switch, so it's going to be a little loud. Although once it settles down after boot up, it's not too terribly loud, and that gives you 4 10 gig SFP ports. Okay. So then you get down to distance. How far away are you running devices will affect what you want to do. That Netgear switch that we talked about way early in the show, that could be a really cost-effective way to jump into 10 gig as well, because it has 2 10 gig ports on it, one of them SFP and one RJ45. So then it comes down to what kind of card do you have in the PC. Some of these server boards from ASRock Rack or Asus or Gigabit come with a 10 gig port down on them. Usually it's SFP. So you kind of have to play it around a little bit. You can save a bunch of money on the switch and then end up spending way too much money on Ethernet cards. I will throw out, just to be careful, when it comes to 10 gig Ethernet, yes, when it comes to 10 gig Ethernet, don't make any assumptions. I tore apart an old server one time, had a couple of 10 gig cards in it, and I thought, hey, I'll just keep those around and in case you want to play with 10 gig on them. They were older Intel cards, and drivers stopped at server 2003 or somewhere.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay.
So we get so used to grabbing any gigabit Ethernet card, plugging it in, and it works with any operating system. Some of the early 10 gig stuff doesn't work with anything anymore. So
even Linux?
There might be some Linux variants for them. That's probably more likely. But always kind of go through the numbers and see what you need to do. The other thing about 10 gig, I mentioned QLogic. QLogic is selling some switches, and they have some very affordable. I'm sorry, not QLogic. QNAP. So QNAP has some very affordable switches that support 10 gig. Can be an easy way to jump into things there as well.
All right.
I smell Uyghurs spending money this weekend.
It's not good. I know. That's why I was just actually looking at it right now. I'm looking it over because I was going back to the viewings because I was doing the same thing you just told me not to do. I was actually looking on eBay for just any 10 gig card for the main machine here in Unraid to go along with the new 10 gigabit switch. Trying to add up, see how much the toy would cost, but now I got to make sure those will actually work.
Mellanox is a pretty safe choice. Their families are numbered, so the Connect X3 is a few years old, but that's still really well supported.
And
So
we have a link for that in the show notes.
I'm just shocked at the price on the Arubas, on how low they are. I mean, there's a couple on eBay. If you filter it by $0 to $100, there are quite a few, and I just did PoE even. I mean, those are PoE managed switches.
Yep.
And with the 10 gig in there for $69 is the one I was looking at.
Yep. So the S3500 is a little newer. I have an S2500 I use for a lab switch down the basement. Works quite well, and it's surprising the price is that low on them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so you said that some of their members had to trick it and say, "Hey, those 10 gig ports are not uplinks anymore." So can it switch though at 10 gigabit with those four?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you could have 4 10 gigabit devices around and it'll switch at that speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And full. I believe it's full non-blocking on those because they're traditionally used for stacking. So the 10 gig ports,
okay.
I think the whole switch is non-blocking. But if you go,
yeah, that's a new word for me. What does non-blocking mean?
Non-blocking means that every port can support its full bandwidth.
Got it. Okay.
Almost all your new switches are full non-blocking throughout. Back in the olden days when you opened up a switch and there were lots of different chips in there, sometimes if you had ports on certain set of ports were on one chip, another set of ports were on another chip, and there was linkage between those, you'd run into basically throttling issues, or you wouldn't be able to see full bandwidth across the switch. So if you loaded down all the ports, had stuff plugged into all of them, you would not get full throughput on all of them.
Got it. All right.
Sarah,
my wheels are churning.
Sarah came around the corner just a few minutes ago. She's like, "Are you podcasting?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You're really quiet." I was like, "Well, I don't have a lot to say on this one." Kevin, I will ask you this question. If we did a home server show meetup today, we haven't done those in a while, but you always used to bring some gear to those. If we were going to have one today, what would you bring? What kind of gear would you bring to the home server show meetup?
If I was showing up today, I would probably bring, still a fan of the little microservers. HP is just going through a transition. The microserver Gen 10 was not as popular as the Gen 8. They went to an AMD chip in it and they dropped the ILO function from it. But I think it's still a very good performance box for the price you pay. And actually what I've been playing with on that is, so Unraid, I always end up thinking of Unraid as an easy way to run lots of drives. I want to run a whole bunch of drives. But the nice thing with these little microservers is there's 4 hard drive bays on the front, and there's a 16 or a by 8 slot on the motherboard. So what I've been playing with, and the cheapest license for Unraid is the 6 drive. So what I have in there is 4 hard drives, a M.2 NVMe SSD, and then another SATA SSD. So 2 SATA SSD, NVMe SSD in that slot, and then 4 drives up front. That's my 6 drives. And I've just been playing around with that, seeing what the performance looks like, what it feels like. And that would be one that I would bring to that. If you flip that picture back up again, if we were doing this, so they just introduced the Gen 10 Plus, which they're going back to Intel for the chipset. Comes with a Xeon chip. The hard drives are mounted. Instead of vertically, they're horizontal now. So this box, instead of being 9 inches tall, it's 4 inches tall. So it's a tiny little server. They pulled the power supply out of it, uses an external power supply now. Pricing is going to be higher because they went back to putting the ILO chip in there for remote access. But don't have one of these yet. But there, you kind of look at the back of it. It's quad Ethernet built in, and they use the really good Intel chip. So this could be a really neat box for somebody who, small office, they want to run like an Untangle in it with backup software and other things to put it together as one complete system. Could be a nice little virtualization box. I'm also thinking these might, back towards the end of the Gen 8 HP, a lot of guys were using that as a VMware training, home lab kind of deal. I think this could get you back into kind of a good VMware home lab because it'll have 32 gig of memory possible, little limited on disk space. So you have to kind of make your choices wisely there. But could be good support from that point of view.
You could put some big spinners in there too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
If you wanted to, I mean, you could do 12 or 14 terabyte if you want to do it that way, right? You
fill it up with big drives. So
4 in there. Do you know what these are retailing for right now?
They have not started shipping yet, and the list prices were really high, $600-$700, something like that. And traditionally, we're used to microservers being in the $300 to $400 kind of range. So we'll have to see what the pricing comes out.
Yeah, I was thinking 1,000 when the way you were talking. So to think,
yeah, I think one of the higher end units of these fully loaded with memory will probably be pushing close to $1,000.
Okay, yeah, once you start putting drives and other pieces in there, right?
Yep, absolutely.
We're running a little short on time, even though you can podcast forever. I do try to keep these to about an hour 20. Kevin, anything else you want to throw in there?
Not offhand. I threw in a link to one of my favorite software companies, Paragon. They still have their set of free things you can get from them. If you prefer a traditional backup and recovery kind of package, they have that available yet. The one I haven't played with yet, if you see on the screen there, is something called Image Mounter. It was kind of put together for IT help desk kind of folks to be able to grab up images off laptops and mount them on another system. So if the user had a crash system and you had a backup of it, you could grab that and run it as a VM. Their rescue kit is free. That includes some of their file recovery products. And then the good old partition manager that they've offered for a lot of years, they have a community version of that. So if you run into issues with partition management functions, and
are these all free?
These
are
all
community free. Their community editions are free. Everything is free here.
Everything on this page is free. Yeah, okay. They still have a lot of software they sell, and for people who dabble in Macs, kind of a mixed world of Mac, these were the guys who I always found had a product that would let you run Mac formatted drives or Mac file systems on Windows PCs. So I'm not seeing that right now, but they always had something like that.
How would you rate their backup and recovery versus an Acronis or a Veeam or EaseUS is one of those we've been working with. They have a $30 solution. What would you? It's super simple, by the way. But how would you rate this the Paragon?
Very, very functional. You can back up to an image. You can back up just a regular file store. You can turn an image into a VM. So if you want to make it portable and take it other places. My big issue with these guys, and I say this with all due respect, is they're a German-based company. So the user's manual for the backup and recovery software is 175 pages. So there can be a little learning curve with it. But
that's so great. Oh, you'd expect it, right?
Yes, you have to. I've dealt with these guys for a lot of years, and you just come to expect that from them.
No, it's great. It's precision, right? Well, Kevin, thanks that's very thorough. I would expect nothing less. I think you may be close to the record setter for number of times on Home Gadget Geeks non-regular host.
Hey,
yeah.
I'll look for my gold jacket.
I'll buy a T-shirt or something. I think you got one of those too. So, well, like I said earlier, Kevin, I've appreciated your willingness to be a part of this community. You start doing these things and you have no idea the kind of the impact over time it's going to have. And it's just amazing to me. We've been doing this as a community for at least a decade, a little bit longer for some of us in there. And I just really appreciate your willingness to share and to come on and to keep coming on and to be a big part of this community and being so generous. So again, thanks for coming on and being really, really helpful out there, not just with deals, but with parts and how to get them and where to get them and what's the best place to get them. I'm sure Uyghur wears you out on some of those things.
A little bit. I was gonna say, how interested I am, because if I get really quiet towards the end, it's because I got 3 different shopping carts already full. I've got some research pages open. It's like I'm already like, oh man, everything you've said tonight has been right up my alley of something I've been looking into. It was such good information. Really appreciate it.
No, it's fun. I enjoy. It's kind of that knowledge transfer, helping people learn. And, I think if you help folks figure out where to get information and how to do things themselves, it helps them out and they can help other people out. So it's just, it is a community. And that's what I have always enjoyed about this group.
Looking at that old Home Tech 107 when we did those kind of roundtables, I need to pull that back. I need to, Mike, as we think about maybe in the late summer, early fall, get some topics and just say, storage and networking, and maybe good just to come in and have folks explain their home networks.
That would be a ton of fun.
Yeah. No, that we should resurrect that again and pull that together. So Kevin, thanks for coming on. A couple reminders as we kind of wrap things up here. One is, don't forget, tweet out ICDoc USA, all one word, at ICDoc USA. Let them know you're a fan of the show. Make sure you copy me at Jay Collison on it. You can send them anything. A few of you did that during the show. Tony, want to thank you for doing that. Joe got that done. Mike did it as well. Still not too late for folks that are on here live. If you want to do that before the end of the night, that maybe we could do some interesting things with them. So I appreciate you getting out there. If it's after the fact, just send it when you have some time. Appreciate you doing that and getting that over to him. You never know what kind of thing, how that's going to make. We mentioned the Discord group. So theaverageguy.tv/Discord will get you in there. If you're like, oh, where are these amazing deals? Well, they're in the show notes. So make sure you go to theaverageguy.tv/HGG434 for this show. They'll be out there. And you can get them from there. Want to thank everybody who supports us on Patreon, the Average Guy. If you want to do that, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. If I do a deal with ICDoc, they won't be able to necessarily provide all the parts, and I'll need to buy some of those. So your support through Patreon helps me do that, and appreciate that as well. Remember, you can send us an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I mentioned you can track me down on Twitter at Jay Collison. Mike, what's your Twitter?
At Uyghur Tech.
At Uyghur Tech. That's easy. Kevin, are you on? You're on.
I'm on Twitter. I never remember my Twitter though. I think it's Scoon 1979, if I'm not mistaken.
I think let's get that really fast, because I know you were tweeted before the show. Scoon Doggy 1979.
There you go.
And so you can follow us all that way if you want to get that done. Don't forget theaverageguy.tv, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. Speaking of high-speed, Christian's been upgrading the infrastructure there at Maple Grove, and it's now going to have a live failover of sort. And so that's an enterprise that just keeps getting bigger and bigger. You can say you were on it when it was just Christian and his dad, and plans as little as $10 a month. A great way to get it done. Check out maplegrovepartners.com. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Don't forget, come out and join us live sometime. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, and if you've got this far, wow.
You're the real deal.
Seriously, come join us live. This is a ton of fun. Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. We'd love to have you. The regulars are out there. Everybody will welcome you. And so we'd love to have you. Thanks to Tony and Joe and Alex and Ron and Tony and Brian, and I think I got them all. Ryan was out here a little bit earlier. By the way, they're coming back on. Ryan and Bob coming back on here in a couple weeks after the big fail. Want to thank you for joining us tonight. With that, if you're listening live, stay around for the post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Kevin, as always, masterful and expensive for a week.
Inexpensive.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not for me. I didn't buy a thing. I'm hoping I'd really like to figure out where I could go with this ICDoc thing, and that'd be kind of fun if they'll do something that way. It'd be fun to, and not just do. I don't want to just do like a like a one and done. I'm not, I'd rather kind of work through several of their things and see what they're doing new. I know they're focusing on M2 and U2 storage, but there's some other things we could do. When we still think about this audience, we still got some folks who got some big storage stuff.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of fun.
I did a few tests, back to the microserver thing of, I took over at Reset. There's still pictures of it. I was experimenting with taking one of their 4-bay docks, so 4 3.5-inch swappables, and mounting that on top of one of the microservers, and then taking the external RAID connection up to that. Worked great. Just never quite finished coming up with an enclosure for it to pretty it up and make it look nice. So, but yeah, there's
you have a picture of that you can bring up right now, and we can
yeah, I think
throw
so.
it on screen here.
Oh, Lopty, you're here too. I didn't see you out there.
Yeah, he was pretty quiet during the show. I didn't see him. I just saw that as well, and I was like,
oh, Ryan, I'm glad you clarified. When you said that, I was like, oh shoot, did something bad happen? You said single parent life. I was like, oh no. Just for the week, he says. Just for the week.
Like anyways?
I don't know if you meant like always or just for the week, like anyways. I don't know.
Tell me when you're ready, Kevin, and I'll see if you can track that down.
So
there we go.
You can share the screen now. So this is a post over there where I took a
screen out a little bit for me. Maybe that'll make the pictures a little bit bigger. See if there we go. No, I was wrong. Go ahead. Just keep going.
All right.
It's fine.
So this is one of their 4 bays. If you just go to home server, it's Icy Dock internal turned external. I just took one of their devices, a 4-bay, a couple of different 4 bays of theirs, and had an HP RAID card in here that has the SFF8088 connection out the back, which is a standard connection on those kind of cards. Found the right cabling for it, and this one was designed with a back plane. So had to come up with a way to power it, and I think I just used a regular PC power supply. You just have to short a couple pins on that to take care of the switch function to make it work right. And it had really groovy lights on the front, so you got to like that. And then I had a second one of those that instead of having the back plane was just a bare drive in the back, so I had to use a different cabling function for that guy.
I'm going to come hang out at your house. You're going to have some fun projects. I'm going to come visit my sister who just moved to Minneapolis, and I'm going to just come over to your place.
Not see her. Like,
yeah.
Like,
sorry.
Hold on. I got to go.
I'll be right back.
We're nearby.
Yeah, I'm going to Walmart. I'll be right back.
I'm going to Surly. Don't expect me back.
Oh, Surly's fun. Another... I was trying to think of another one I did with this, but it's an easy way to add drives, pop these into a case. There's some good case options left out there as well. There, we're going through stereo dip.
Super cool. I'm always amazed at your ability. I mean, you just really have an engineering mind to go in and just troubleshoot the. Like you're like, oh yeah, it just takes a couple pins and you got to, set. And I'm like, oh my God, that would take me a month to figure out. I got frustrated that I couldn't make this remote thing work perfectly without doing anything to it. You're like, I just wanted to hack on it without doing anything. And so I was like, screw it, I'm getting the hub.
Oh, I have my moments with that. I think I posted on the Facebook page. Maybe I was looking at, my kid wanted colored lights in the bedroom, so I thought, obviously Philips Hue is the right choice, but I went with Lifix because I always back the underdog in some way or another.
Yeah, I'm not sure Philips Hue is the right choice to be honest.
Well, these were Wi-Fi, and I kind of wanted to head that route. And the only thing with jumping into the family, I'm very happy with them. They work great. We got one regular bulb and then a string. And we'll ultimately put the string on the wall in some form or fashion. And so in the vein of me having my non-tech moments, I did the light bulb and it was easy with the app on the phone and it's up and running. And then I plug in and I keep trying to find it in the app and I keep seeing this thing pop up and I think, no, that's the one I already got. Well, then I finally realized, no, this app is smart enough that it knows that one's already set up. I keep stumbling over the fact that it found it so quickly. I just didn't realize, it was finding it that quickly. I kept hitting the button to find it, and the app should have had a little logo to pop up and say, "I already found it, dumbass."
Yeah.
Stop pushing that button. It's right.
It's here. It's right here.
It's here.
Here, I'll highlight it for you.
This one. Hey, this one right here. I already found it for you.
Okay, so when I was going to ask you in the show, when you posted about the Sonos, when you were talking about Wi-Fi and everything like that, analyzer, and you referenced Sonos, do you know a lot about Sonos?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I set up the Ubiquity network at that one of my guy's house I was talking about. Some guy I work with, and he actually came to me, and we both set up Sonos together. I'm not going to take any credit for it. We both were just kind of putting that one in together. And he's like, "Oh, now I don't have any range." And so my understanding of Sonos, and so on the range issue, if one Sonos is hardwired into the network in any way, even a Sonos Connect, which is I think the only one that is, it's now doing its own Wi-Fi network between the devices, right?
Correct.
So but he has way better Wi-Fi coverage in his house, I think, than Sonos can do because they're so few and far between. So I think if I unplug that and connect it over Wi-Fi, it might actually work better.
It should work better, but you'll want to do a bunch of research because the Sonos mesh, that's called Sonos Net. So if you plug in one of their devices, and then they've got their bridge and their boost, which are non-music devices, their network devices, to set that up. But same kind of thing. If one Sonos is plugged in, they all flip over to that Sonos Net network. Sonos Net uses an older version of Spanning Tree Protocol. And it has Ubiquity and Sonos don't get along well.
Oh, really?
Because Ubiquity uses modern technology called RSpan, Rapid Spanning Protocol,
Okay.
Rapid Spanning Tree Protocol. There's lots of app notes. If I can find one of them, I'll pop it up on the page for you. A lot of people have kind of solved it by how they're, configuring it. There's some good app notes up there, either on the Sonos pages or on the Ubiquity pages.
Okay.
But, those would be good for him to. You guys
I'll check that out. I'll try first just unplugging it and doing it over their Wi-Fi and seeing if we have run into any issues. And because I think I plugged one of the Connects into, it was right next to a switch. I was like, "Oh, sweet, hardwire it. Why not?" Not realize the implications of that. And their house is massive. One of the largest houses I've seen. So it's the Wi-Fi even was a struggle to get to cover everything. But I'm guessing that's the issue with their range.
Yep. And most people run into kind of the opposite thing. Up on the Sonos forums or any of the Facebook pages, you could post a problem with the answer that everybody gives to everything is, "Oh, you have to hardwire one of your devices. Sonos Net fixes everything." And Sonos Net doesn't always fix everything, but the reason it tends to fix stuff is people have crappy Wi-Fi, and their house is small. If you think about it, most people have one Wi-Fi router, or they have one access point for Wi-Fi.
Right.
So the beauty of Sonos Net is nobody has one Sonos speaker. You have a bunch of them. So now all of a sudden you've turned them on to talk to each other, and you do tend to get good network coverage. The problem is it's old 802.11b or G, so it's not very fast. They've had to keep, and you can see like the Move, the Sonos Move they came out with, the portable speaker, that doesn't connect to Sonos Net. For a lot of good reasons, because it's portable. You wouldn't want it to be part of your mesh because you'd pick it up to take it with you and it could leave a hole in your fabric. But more and more I'm seeing Sonos is really promoting the idea of you should really move to your own Wi-Fi. And by the way, you should go buy really good Wi-Fi to get your house running on it.
Right.
So, people don't realize that you mentioned channels earlier. If you're running Sonos Net and you're running Wi-Fi, you've got 2.4 gig networks running. And that's a common one that you have to help people with, is have them change the channel on one or the other so they don't conflict with each other. So
makes total sense.
It's quite a bit of network management type of stuff.
Okay. Good to know. I'm gonna hopefully just unplugging the network cable will help.
It's certainly worth giving it a try. There's some good app notes on it, but that's about all you have to do is get it to flip over. Occasionally, you might have to go into one of the devices and put in the Wi-Fi password to make it.
I probably will. Yep.
So you hit on that.
He's had pretty good luck. So we used the Ubiquiti mesh access points, those tall, skinny ones with the 2 antennas. 2 of them hardwired, one because it's an old house, but it's really big, so there's no hardwiring except for 2 areas. So I put those two of those access points hardwired, and then one kind of in a triangular position up that is just meshed in. But it's working out really well for their setup. Those things, I was kind of concerned about them, but they work fine. He's not a huge heavy user. He just needs coverage. Yep. He doesn't need insane speed. His boys just need to be able to watch YouTube and go anywhere in the house and watch YouTube. And so far, so good. It's been fine.
Yep. So
those access points are great, and they're so cheap. Those ones were like $99 a piece.
Yeah.
So,
and that's part of the reason, one of my thought process and some of the things we talked about tonight was, I think a lot of folks just rule out wireless access points because it's expensive and it's complex, and it's changed so much in the last few years.
Definitely.
Frankly, because of the way Ubiquiti hit the market so hard a couple years ago with new access points at lower prices and free controller, everybody else had to follow suit. So if you're D-Link, Ingenious, TP-Link, any of these guys, you had to head down that route. So
I love the controller aspect. The fact that I can control all those people's homes from, I run it just in a Docker at Unraid.
Yep.
And they all come back to that one Dockered. It's awesome. It's fantastic.
That works great. So Sonos, you mentioned he has Sonos Connect. Have you dealt with the legacy versus modern issue looming for May timeframe?
We have not. Do I need to look into that?
Yep.
So all his Sonos are new, except for there was one Connect that was left behind from the previous homeowner.
Okay.
And I think maybe we'll just need to replace that one Connect.
So go to, if you go to Sonos.com and you log in and then you click on your system, it'll show you it'll show you all your Sonos devices, and it'll show you if they're legacy or modern. Anything built before, generally, so Play 5 Gen 1s, amps and Connects built before 2015 are what is being called legacy, and those will stop getting updates as of sometime in May. They'll still function, but the issue is if you have a mixed system with a mixture of legacy devices and modern devices, your whole system will stop getting updates. So what they're talking about, for me, I've got a lot of both, but it's really actually easy for me to break it into 2 different networks. And that's what they're kind of talking about is they're going to have some easier instructions to have you go in and put your legacy devices on one Sonos network, put your modern devices on another Sonos network. You'll need 2 apps to control it because there'll be different networks. And the big gotcha is you won't be able to do party mode in the whole house because the 2 networks won't talk to each other.
So if I'm looking at my products page and if there's no alerts or anything, I should be good. It has the modern product check mark box.
Yeah. If they're all checked modern, then you should be.
Okay, good. So I think he's good then because he has the Connect.
If his
Connect looks fine.
If his Connect was built after 2015, he's good.
Okay. Yep. He's good. He's got.
So yeah, they should all say legacy or modern behind them and tell you kind of which way they are.
Perfect. Yep. They look good.
But yeah. So yeah.
Fun stuff. Learned so much.
It's all technology kind of stuff.
Love it.
It's all good.
I really liked it. He was the first person who kind of said, "Hey, can you help me set up Sonos?" I'm like, "Never have, but sure, let's look at it." And it was a really fun, unique system. Really enjoyed it.
If you
have the money to spend on it, I mean, they're expensive.
Yep.
Great products. The sound bars sound amazing. He has 2 of those, one on each TV, and I'm like, man, I was thinking about telling you to maybe add some Play 1s in the back or something for some surround sound, but that thing just sounds so good in this room. I don't know.
No, it sounds great. People get upset because it is limited. It'll only do Dolby 5.1. It won't do DTS or any of the other formats. But
right.
It's if you want to play with Atmos and these other things, go buy a real receiver and do a real home theater setup. The big thing about Sonos is when I did the play bars in-house here, I've never gotten a call from I used to get the call from the wife when I was out of town. We're just trying to watch a DVD, and okay, honey, pick up this remote and flip this on and turn the surround sound receiver on and go do this and go try that. With Sonos, it all goes away. It sounds great, and anybody in the family can run the thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, and like, it was great actually, because I didn't even think about it. They used a Connect to connect into the old whole home audio system that was already in the house.
Yep.
It was a great way to pipe in Sonos through there.
Yep. And
so again, one app for everything.
Yeah, and the Connect works both ways. You can pump Sonos into a system, but you can also take output from that system and pump it into Sonos. So a lot of guys who have vinyl collections and they want their turntable to play other places in the house, you can go like through a tape out port on the receiver into the line in of the Connect, and then you can use that line in from any Sonos product.
That's a great idea. Didn't even think about that one.
Yeah, so there's lots of cool stuff you can do with it from that point of view. It's a neat system.
Yeah, blah 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 blah. No, I'm just joking.
Clickety clack, clickety clack.
Did we put Jim to sleep yet?
I'm getting there. If you are, they're talking
more beer.
There. Oh man, that'd be super good. Joe says, Andrew, I still run a WRT 54G. This goes way back. A router in the wild, circa 2005. That feels like that was forever ago. And wasn't there a version you could put a tomato or
yes,
what was that called?
The 54G opened up to several different products
from different firmware, right? You could put on there. And
is DD-WRT still a thing? Do people still use that to flash like on Linksys?
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Oh, that's what he's talking about.
And you'd have to have a certain amount of memory on it or something. Not all of them would do it.
Yeah, it was a certain capacity point you had to hit.
think I just finally got rid of those. They were sitting in a bin. My stuff sits in bins for a while before I
got one on top of my server rack. It was always meant to be like my emergency plug this in if everything else crashes. At least you have a router with some Wi-Fi. I've never had to use it. I don't even know I don't even know what's set up on it.
Yeah, you'd have to flash it. I mean, you'd have to reset it back to factory and then find some really old manuals to figure out, okay, how do we do this again? It's funny how fast this stuff goes away. I was just, a couple, 6 weeks ago configuring the Habitat router, and then I let it set for 4 weeks. And the other day I tried to go back to it and I'm like, okay, how did I do this again?
Yeah.
Like, what was because you got to figure out it's complicated. I mean, it's more than just, it's not the most intuitive thing. And you got to kind of work through it. You got to think through it sometimes like a coder as opposed to a user. And I went in there and I was trying to configure this dimmer switch and I was like, oh, how did I do this again? I'm going to need some time to figure this out again. So.
Hey, Mike, I just shot that link to the Aruba area over at Serve the Home. And I remember that one of the guys, if you go through some of the later pages of that, one of the guys actually, I think, shot some YouTube videos of best practices around doing it. This happened to be for the 2500, the earlier one. There's another thread out there for the 3500 that helps.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to watch those before I pull the trigger to make sure. Because the problem is right now everything works. I would literally be buying it for the 10 gig and to get away from. Is programming this thing? Is it there like a web GUI for it, or is it?
It has a web GUI, yes.
Okay, yeah.
And CLI, but it also supports a web GUI.
Hopefully it can do. I'm guessing it can do bonding and teaming and all that stuff. But
when you mentioned the CLI thing, my humorous story. This is from a lot of years ago at going to. I can't think of the trade show now. It was one of the big networking trade shows they have every year in Vegas. And the big breakthrough that year was a company out of China that we all know well now. We didn't know then. Huawei was coming out with the H3C switch line to rival Cisco. And I got there early and I'm walking through and there's the H3C booth. And I come walking up and there's two networking guys there and I'm, more of a sales guy, engineer, novice guy. And you look at it and it's almost Cisco green, not quite Cisco green, but almost Cisco green. And one of the guys says, well, I wonder what the CLI is like. And one of the guys from Huawei is, well, it's hooked up, go to the PC here and you can play with it, see how you like it. And he starts tapping away and doing a few things. And you could tell he was a real networking guy. And he turns around to his buddy and goes, all of the Cisco commands work.
It's a Cisco switch.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We'll make the color a little different and no one will notice we've copied Cisco.
These are not the droids
Right.
you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
We
for
did
sure.
not steal this from Cisco.
I'll also have to look if the PoE supports the type of PoE I need. I always get tripped up on that too. PoE plus.
Yeah, these are all that was kind of my big jump on this, is it takes you into PoE plus. So
that's perfect. That's what I need.
Ron says in the chat room, so an idea is a show around your best horror tech stories.
That's one of the good roundtables right there. That would be a fun roundtable.
I've tried to do that before, and it didn't take as well as I thought it would. But I think maybe we can throw it out, and I think what I would do is I would just pick some topics and say, okay, if you're interested, let me know, and then I'll start filling in. And maybe we do 3. 4 was too many. Maybe we do 3 a show, and everybody gets a chance to present and then talk, and that's basically a show. At that point, we'll have to start working on some topics. If you are listening live, thanks for my watch is reminding me it's bedtime. Not that I never follow it. I never, because I've got that on an iOS. I've got that sleep thing set. It's like, hey, I need to wake up at 6. What time do I need to go to bed? Because I'm a dumbass. And it's like, hey, so right now it's like, hey,
go to bed now.
This is just a reminder that you said 6:30. If you ain't 8 hours of sleep, you better get yourself ready for bed. I never follow it. I don't even know I have it turned on. Every day I just ignore it. It's one of those, well, it was a good idea at the time. Thanks for joining us tonight. You guys hang tight for 1 second, and we will see you back next week. I think Jay Madison is up again, a reschedule because I was a dumbass. Jay Madison is back, and then Ryan and Bob are back. So we've got some heavy networking and equipment hitters over the next couple weeks. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.